What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video here on the remote front office. Before we get started, as per always, if you guys could like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, greatly appreciate all of it. Greatly appreciate the interaction and the subs we've been getting here recently. Still trying to stay consistent with 3 videos a week all the way through until the 23-24 season. God help us all. Today we are doing I feel like I've said this the last week and a half worth of videos, but it's because I'm kind of trying to branch out from a typical off-season rebuild type video. Today we are going to be going over my rebuilding philosophy of teams and how it's changed over the years, and a little bit of my background on just my general viewing experience and how it's kind of changed. We're not going to go year by year, obviously, but I picked kind of a couple of crucial years as I got older and as I kind of watched the game more and stuff like that, and watched a more wider range of teams, just kind of how my philosophy as far as building a team has changed. A little bit of background. Am a Bulls fan, have lived here in Illinois my whole life. When I was younger, we didn't have the super advanced cable, so there wasn't ESPN, all that stuff. So it was WGN. So I was a Bulls fan growing up. My dad's a Lakers fan. And just so WGN was the only TV for sports that we had in the house. So Bulls fan through and through, watched it all. Earliest memories, I would say probably like I was 10 or 11. So we're going to start kind of in that time frame as far as actual watching the games. Obviously, I've been playing 2K since 2K2. Pretty much since I was as young as I can remember, I've always been playing 2K. My 2K philosophy obviously is a little different than my real life philosophy, but it kind of stemmed from that initial sequence. So we're going to kind of start there. So the game was 2K6. This is the one I played with my dad all the time. It had Shaq on the cover, and my main team I picked, who eventually was at some points banned, I picked the Phoenix Suns. I typically ran more of a run and gun offense, obviously with Steve Dash. And then typically, even in that time frame, I was jacking up, I'd say, probably 20 to 30 threes a game. Was a real push the pace offense, run and gun, quick decisions, shoot a bunch of threes. You live and die by the threes, my dad always said. He was Lakers fan, so obviously Lakers. He was a big Debunking guy, so Spurs. Eventually, as I got older, shooting as many threes as I did, the point spread typically got a little bit bigger. But that was really my first introduction to the game of basketball as far as just kind of my take on how I would construct a roster, right? It was a facilitating point guard, a bunch of shooters who could also play defense, guard their own positions, an inside center if you need, or I was running a small ball center and just shoot a bunch of threes, right? As far as the actual NBA stuff, earliest probably I remember consistently watching, vividly watching, was the 08-09 season. A little bit of background, that was Derrick Rose's rookie year. I watched a little bit of Derrick in college. Didn't watch him any in high school. But that's kind of where I got introduced to Derrick Rose. That's where I got introduced to Coach Cal. So that's why I'm a Kentucky fan, because I watched Derrick Rose at Memphis, Coach Cal at Memphis, and I followed Coach Cal. Derrick Rose's rookie year, that was the year that there was one player over 30 points per game, which was Dwayne Wade. Rashard Lewis had the most three-point makes in the league at 220 ahead of his time. The Bulls were 500. We were 15th in offense, 18th in defense. For the first couple of years of my life, first couple of years of viewing experience, I would say my philosophy was pretty simple. One superstar / one ball handler. Everybody else plays defense, can at least guard their own position. And then inside center was a defensive center, a rolling center, pick and roll offense was pretty much my philosophy at that point in time. If you were to tell me, take Team X, rebuild them, that's how I'm starting out, right? The next, I would say, pinnacle part, this was going into my freshman year of high school, the 2010-2011 season. This was the year Blake Griffin won Rookie of the Year. It was technically his second year, though, due to injuries. There was 0 players that scored 30 points per game. Kevin Durant was at 28. Darrell Wright, if you guys remember him from the Golden State days, attempted made 194 threes. The Bulls, that was the year that we were 62-20. Derrick Rose won MVP. We were 11th in offense, first in defense. The reason I keep bringing up the Bulls record is you have to remember this is the team I'm watching the most of, right? Out of all the teams, I would say 80% of my viewing knowledge is coming from the Chicago Bulls every time they're on WGN, right? So we had Tibbs at this time. So this is kind of where my defense first mentality comes from, right? Is from watching these Bulls teams and seeing how much they cared about defense. You had Joakim Noah, Luol Deng, Derrick Rose is the scoring, right? It was an inside center. Everybody else plays defense, can shoot a little bit, but you're defensive first, right? And it was still pretty much the same philosophy, right? One guy that can score, one ball handler. Everybody else is a defender. You have a rolling center. And then we have the 2015-2016 season. This is my first year of college. This is kind of where gears shift a little bit as I'm around more people. Obviously, I had friends in high school that talked ball with me, but it wasn't as extensive. I had guys that I was hanging out with every day that were either on the college team or just general friends. And my buddy at the time was a Milwaukee Bucks fan, really big Bucks fan. We went to a couple of Bucks games through our college days. And we talked hoops almost on a daily basis, right? So this is kind of where my philosophy starts to change and adapt a little bit, right? So this, to give you guys some context, is Cat's rookie year. There was one player over 30 points per game. It was Steph. This was his record-breaking year where he had 402 threes made in a season. This was really the pinnacle of my chuck threes, you live by threes, you die by threes mentality, right? The Bulls were 42-40, 23rd in offense, 15th in defense. Threes, spacing, one ball handler. Again, this is kind of still almost the same setup, right? And Steph almost made it worse, right? Because I'm like, okay, if Steph can do it, you surround Steph with a bunch of guys that can defend. You have a good pick and roll guy, so you have somebody that they're scared of. They're dropping down. Your primary ball handler is shooting a bunch of threes, right? Doesn't have to be an A-plus defender, but just put the ball in the bucket, right? That was still my mentality at that time. And then we go to 2019-2020. This is the COVID season. So this is Ja's rookie year. There were 3 players over 30 points per game. Harden was at 34.3. This was the breakout Rockets Harden year where he just absolutely tore through the league, right? 3 players were at 29 points per game. So almost at 30. You could basically round it up to almost 6, right? This was also the year Harden hit 299 threes. So again, a lot of threes. You have a volume of, you're building around one guy. He's shooting a bunch. He's doing the playmaking. Bunch of defenders around him, a lob threat, that sort of offense, right? This year, the Bulls were 22-43 because of COVID. Offense, we were 27th. Defense, we were 12th. Again, still watching, obviously in college, or past college now, but still watching a lot of the Bulls games as I'm in Chicago at the time, right? So I'm still watching a lot of Bulls games, and just that's the knowledge that I have. Then we get to this past year, right? And during the COVID, I'd kind of started to understand, okay, 2 guys initiate the offense. You give yourself some versatility. If the defense is focused on one guy, then you have another guy that can create that offense, right? And be a secondary playmaker for you. And this is where I kind of got into a little more of the switching mentality. But this is where I kind of lost my feel for having an inside center, right? I went too far off the deep end, right? I was like, all right, everybody's got to be able to shoot. You have Cat out here spacing. You have all these guys that can play and just jack a bunch of threes, and you have all this wide open space for your guys to drive and da-da-da-da-da, right? That was where that really started and really kind of sunk in for me. And then we have this past year, right? I think this is probably the most of NBA-wide basketball I've watched, I'll say. It wasn't as Bulls heavy, mainly because the Bulls drove me nuts this year. But I feel like I watched, because this is my first year I had League Pass. I was able to watch more teams, understand more schemes, all that sort of stuff, right? So we have, this is obviously Paolo's rookie year. 6 players over 30 points per game. We saw that jump. Clay led the league in three-pointers made. I didn't even know that, with 301 threes. And the Bulls were mid. We were 40-42. Again, 24th in offense, 5th in defense. So while this is probably my least proportionate as far as watching the Bulls this year, it was my most understanding of defense still first, right? And so this is kind of, I'm now at the point, so in conclusion, I guess, to this whole big rant of my past thoughts, viewing of how you build a team, right? At this point, I'm very much on length versatility, multiple ball handlers. I want guys that can switch defensively. I want guys that can still space the floor. However, your center doesn't need to do that, right? I'm now back. I've gone back in the point where I almost prefer my center as an inside center, as crazy as that sounds, right? I want you to be more defensively minded. You can roll. You can still do something offensively. I don't want you to complete nothing on offense, right? But I want you to still be able to switch on to guys occasionally, block shots, rim protection, all that sort of stuff, right? But multiple ball handlers on the perimeter, 4 guys that can space the floor, can shoot, can pass, can do a little bit of dribbling, a little bit of at least a handoff at minimum, and just kind of the general basketball IQ thing, right? So all in all to say, I know I probably should have done this video earlier, but I kind of wanted to break down my philosophy when I'm looking at rebuilding a team, right? So when you guys see, I think that this team should trade for this guy, or I think this team should sign this guy, or I think this move was bad because of this. It's because this is what I'm building off of, right? I'm building off of my past basketball knowledge. I'm building off of my philosophies now. I'm always going to be a defensive first guy. It's just what I do. It's who I am. It's how I think, right? If you guys have ever played with me on 2K or against me on 2K, I'm a defensive first guy. It's just how I think mentally, right? And it's because of Tom Thibodeau. I'll be entirely honest. It's Tom Thibodeau. But I think all in all, I've slowly started to adapt to the versatility. I think I was kind of slower on it than most. I was more so focused on at least be a positive guy guarding your own position, right? But the NBA is now so positionless. I need you to be able to switch. I need length. I need size. I need multiple ball handlers. I need multiple guys that can initiate my offense. Obviously, it's not perfect. No team's going to be absolutely perfect at everything, right? But I think as we start progressing, and maybe we'll start doing like actual rebuilds and like a trade deadline or something on 2K so you guys can kind of see how I think. Hopefully the 2K, my GM is actually good this year so we can get a realistic simulation. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to break down for you guys my thoughts as far as basketball knowledge, right? But I appreciate you guys sticking around. I will catch you guys Monday with another video. Peace.